A theme is developing with the 2024 Cincinnati Reds that I'm not a big fan of.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Reds. My name is Jeff Carr. I am a lifelong Cincinnati Reds fan. Seriously, I've got like baby pictures wearing Reds stuff, no biggie. Not counting or anything like that, but I am counting the fact that I've done this now for 6 years on a daily basis, being your host for Locked On Reds that is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And I want to thank you for joining me here today and making me part of your day. Steve is not with me today. His schedule didn't match up, but it's just you and me talking Reds baseball here today. And we've got a lot to get to, which later on we'll kind of ask the question, will Noelvi Marte be ready? We've talked about how much he's going to help this lineup once he comes back, but is he going to be ready to come back once he's able? Also, there were lots of questions asked about the Reds' base running over the weekend, and there are numbers to both sides as to whether or not they are good or they are bad. We're going to break those all down coming up in a few minutes, but we're going to start first with this whole theme that I'm seeing, this very not good theme that I'm seeing that was prevalent this weekend. That's all coming up on today's Locked On Reds podcast that is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code, all lowercase, LockedOnMLB to get a first deposit match of up to $100. And where I want to begin today is this series loss that the Cincinnati Reds had to the Boston Red Sox, and the theme that's really developing with this team. It's a theme that they can kind of erase with much better play, but there's a lot of shoulda, woulda, coulda with this team. There's so many games that I watch that I'm like, man, if this would have happened, or if this could have happened, or if they would have done what they should have, then this would have done what happened. But there's so much about what the Reds do on a day in and day out basis that it feels like they are their own worst enemies. Saturday was the perfect case in point. So many base running mistakes. You had bad fielding on multiple different plays, and they weren't all errors. You don't always get errors for bad throws into the infield, or you don't always get errors for a hard hit ball that eats you up and you don't make a good play on it. But every time I turn around, there's like, man, that woulda, shoulda, coulda. And maybe these are things that in a year or two, the Reds are making these plays. And maybe this is something that, with more exposure to the major leagues for many of these players that are fully uberly talented, I absolutely acknowledge the promise that most of these players have. But right now they don't have that. And right now it seems as if there are a lot of missed opportunities, or a lot of opportunities just left on the field. I think the perfect example are the different plays where the Reds get thrown out trying to run home on a ground ball. David Bell was asked about this by Tommy Thrall in the pregame. They always do like a pregame interview on the Reds on Radio broadcast, and he was asked about this by Tommy Thrall, and he's like, look, with less than 2 outs and a guy on third and the infield in, we're running on contact almost 100% of the time. Okay, you better be good at it. And he even acknowledged that. The play that Jake Fraley got thrown out on, he was like, Jake Fraley hesitated, and that's why he got thrown out. That's not necessarily a flaw in strategy. That's a flaw in execution. Okay, feels like there's a lot of flaws of execution with this team. As many times as you look, and there were issues on Sunday as well in the loss that the Reds had 7-4 on Sunday. They lose by 1 run on Saturday, and I swear the next 1-run loss, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm so tired of 1-run losses. But that was a 1-run loss on Saturday. Then Sunday, 7-4. You just have a lot of different things that culminate. The umpire isn't giving Nick Lodolo some strikes that he should have had, and then those are followed up by hits, or it's followed up by a walk and then a homer. And then that's when it goes to 4-0. And then you have Jonathan India getting an easy double play ball and just absolutely airmailing a throw that Yao Ming, jumping, wouldn't have caught. There's just all these different things where you add them up and you're just like, well, if they shoulda, woulda, coulda, things would have been different. And it's June. And the National League is mediocre. I'm not saying it's bad, but the opportunity is there that if you can just hang around 500, maybe just be slightly better than 500 at the end of the season, you're going to make the playoffs in the National League. But the Reds continue to do this thing where they get 2 games under 500 or even 1 game under 500 and then they lose 4 of 5 or they lose 3 of 4, whatever. The Reds, it's been a week, a little over a week. Since the Reds have won a series. Got to start winning series to get back in this thing. Like, this Pirates series coming up, starting today, is kind of getting to the must-win category because if they drop 2 or 3 to the Pirates, then you are firmly in last place. There's the colloquial, like, we don't really look at the standings in June, but the Reds seem to be hanging around last place a lot more than they hang around second place or first place, which the Brewers continue to seem to build this weird lead that it's very hard to understand. But there are so many cases. And you go back to the Pirates series, you go back to the Brewers series. When I say, and I'd love to see your comments if you're watching here on YouTube, if you're listening on audio, please hit me up at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs on X. When I say shoulda, woulda, coulda, what's the first thing that comes to your mind about this season? Because it feels like there are plenty of plays that you can reference to, unfortunately. And as fun as this young team is, and as promising as the future is, it seems as though there's an opportunity here this year to make the playoffs. It seems as though there's an opportunity this year to maybe make some noise in the playoffs. I mean, think about, if you get in as the last seed, then you're probably playing, you would probably play the Dodgers in the second round, or the Phillies, one of the Phillies or the Dodgers. But if you can be like a higher wild card seed, or even the number 1 wild card seed, you could face the Brewers in the first round. And as much as the Reds and the Brewers, and the Reds have been owned by the Brewers over the last year or so, there's still an opportunity there. But they're just not seizing it because there's so many of these little things, and there's not a whole lot of statistics to show on this, but you know what I'm talking about. You know the play that I'm mentioning, and I'm mentioning multiple different plays. Not even just one specific one. It's not as if there's one play that's derailed the entire season, but there's this, there's that. If they would have been healthy, if they could have, done this, if the call would have went this way, if the replay should have been overturned like it looked like it would be, this isn't just a this weekend problem. This has been an all season problem. And for as much as I am optimistic about the future, and for as much as I am optimistic about the talent on this team being able to turn this around, there's still these little things that keep nagging at me as I watch a game, and it's just like, well, that might be better when they get more experience. But if they're going to make hay this year, they need to get experience like right away. And the Reds don't really have a whole lot of time to wait for that in 2024. I mentioned the base running thing. A lot of questions asked about the Reds base running and their mentality and what it all means. Because if you think that the Reds are the worst base running team in the league, you're wrong. But you're also not right. But you're also not wrong. I'll explain what I mean coming up next. Summertime means baseball takes center stage, and you can bet it all at FanDuel. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all of its customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. And for us Reds fans, there's a great parlay out there as well that you'll probably get like a same game parlay boost on or something like that during the baseball season. You got to use it on the Elly parlay. Been talking about the Elly parlay all season. Elly Cruz to get 1 or more steals. Elly Cruz to score 1 or more runs. and Elly Cruz to get 2 or more total bases. You put that together in a parlay, the payout just absolutely increases to an awesome amount. And he can do this all in like one at bat. Double, steals third, and then scores. That's amazing. Just do it over at FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook and the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And with us moving into the hot days of summer, it's summertime now officially, and baseball is going to be your way to make some money over at PrizePicks. And you can do all kinds of great stuff. I mean, PrizePicks has a great list of players, just about everybody you can think of. If you're even talking about Santiago Espinal coming up with a clutch single or maybe getting an RBI, or you want to look at Tyler Stevenson going off, hitting some home runs, maybe some strikeout props on Hunter Green or Nick Lodolo or somebody like that. It's all at PrizePicks because they've got the biggest selection of players and statistics for you to take advantage of. Plus, you can go and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100 over on PrizePicks. Again, that's LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, to get a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks is so simple to play. You can literally make your picks in 60 seconds or less. That's over at PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy app. Use the promo code all lowercase LOCKEDONMLB to get a first deposit match of up to $100. Pick more or pick less. It's really that easy. You've got to check out Locked On Sports Today 24/7. It's a free streaming feed on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app that brings you the biggest stories in sports all day, every day, from the local hosts of Locked On like myself and Steve to our national hosts that cover every league. Again, that's on the YouTube TV app or the Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Speaking about our everydayers, thank you so much for being an everydayer and joining the show here today. Coming up on our next podcast for everydayers, we're going to continue to look at some ideas for some trades and do a little Trade Tuesday talk. Create a little recurring segment, at least while trade season goes along. We're really entering trade season, but some ideas for you as well. Talk about my main idea and then also look at a few more that I've got cooking. But let's come back to what the Reds did this weekend, because the base running took center stage after Saturday. There were multiple plays where it was either a bonehead, a toot plan, as they say on Twitter. Our friends over at Red Reporter and some other folks like to tweet out. It's a acronym that stands for thrown out on base, on the bases like a nincompoop. Toot plan. And the Reds are pretty decent at that, unfortunately, this season. But they're also really good at being aggressive in some cases. And it's funny to me because there is a thought process out there that the Reds are the worst base running team in the league because of their aggressiveness. And there's two sides to that question that don't necessarily give you a solid answer. There's a statistic at one of my favorite websites, Baseball Savant. We talk about it a lot. I use it a lot for different purposes, but it's a great way of understanding some things, and they have a great way of understanding base running. They call it runner runs. It is a culmination of a bunch of different things like speed and how much they advance, whether they should have advanced, when they're thrown out, when they're not thrown out, all this other stuff. And it culminates into a singular number that means how many runs above average you can expect based on your team's base running. And it's about expected runs and things like that. So bear with me on that whole definition, because the idea is a way of taking all of the other stuff, not stolen base stuff, but like going first to third, going second to home, things like that. And what does that mean for a team's ability to score a run, or a player's ability to score runs and things like that? The Reds are exactly average according to this metric. They have a runner runs of 0. So they are right at league average. And that means that officially their aggressiveness has neither cost them nor helped them. And so while that doesn't mean that they're the worst base running team in the world, that also doesn't necessarily support the fact that being as aggressive as they are is a good thing. In fact, according to one statistic, they have, the percentage of chances that a player has to advance and the percentage of time they actually tried to advance. The Reds are the most aggressive in Major League Baseball at doing that. No other team tries to take that extra base more in situations where the computer and things like that don't necessarily think that they should than the Reds do. And unfortunately, they're not always successful with that, and that is what has kind of knocked them down to the pack. There's also, and Baseball Savant does a thing where it breaks down, Elly tried to go first to third on this hit, didn't think he should, he made it. That was worth, X amount of runs, and it's always like a decimal point. And without going too deep into maths and stuff like that, they show that when you get that extra base, it's actually not as impactful as when you try for the extra base and get thrown out. In fact, according to most math statistics on this thing, you would have to advance and take the extra base safely 4 times to make up for one time where you got thrown out. So that does say a lot about the fact that the Reds are still at league average. Means that they've advanced a lot because they have been thrown out a lot too. They are right there at the top of Major League Baseball, not the National League, of Major League Baseball, in teams that have been thrown out in situations where they try to take an extra base. But they've also been really successful a lot of times too. That just speaks to how much they try this. And I mentioned that quote from David Bell. He's like, it's because of our team's speed. We will go for the extra base when possible. And especially in that situation where we talked about, if there's a runner on third, less than 2 outs, the infield is in, the runner on third for the Reds is running on contact, period, no matter where the contact goes. Now, if he sees it pops up in the air, then he's going to stop and go back to third. But if it's on the ground, he's going. Head down, trying to get up a full head of steam, go to home plate. And that doesn't always work out. And in fact, the numbers and really the breakdown of the reasoning why the Reds are exactly league average when it comes to runner runs, that only goes up through Friday's game. It hasn't included Saturday's game yet on the Baseball Savant website. So they might actually be below league average by the time those numbers are counted. Simply because when you get thrown out, it takes 4 advances on, when you get thrown out trying to take the extra base when you shouldn't. It is far more detrimental than when you are actually safe. So this is an interesting thing, because does that mean that the Reds should reassess their strategy? I think the hard answer to that is they can't until this offseason. And I get it. They've got a lot of speed. Their team's speed is probably the best in the league. But it also feels like they have hurt themselves with their aggressiveness. They're not the worst team in the league, but they're also nowhere near the best. And because of that, you're causing more error for a team whose margin for error is almost nothing at this point, based on the injuries that derailed May, based on the play, the fact that they didn't hit in the month of May. Their margin for error is pretty much gone, and that's just for the wild card. I hate doing this, but I have a thought in the back of my mind, and there's a reason that don't have a whole lot of pep in my step. I really would have loved it if the Reds won this Red Sox series. But the pep in my step is gone because they lost that series, and I have this thought in the back of my head that I'm going to whisper, all right? I'm going to whisper this because I'm not confident about it, and I really don't want to say it. But I kind of think they're done going for the division. I do. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I am dead wrong. They go on a crazy winning streak. The Brewers finally hit that skid that we all think they're going to hit. And the Reds take the division. But just all of this shoulda, woulda, coulda that I talked about a few minutes ago. Teams who say shoulda, woulda, coulda don't win divisions. And teams that add error to a situation where they don't have that much margin for error don't win divisions. But there's hope, right? Because Noelvi Marte is coming back. Is he going to be ready when he's ready, though? I wonder. That's next. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program as well. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com. You can catch every pitch of the Reds' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Reds and listen to the hometown broadcast from anywhere on your phone or your smart device that has the app. Also, make sure you check out CincinnatiRedstock.com for a lot of great written content about your Cincinnati Reds. I wanted to look at this because kind of wanted to spend the third segment on Mondays talking about the minors, some different notes from performances of the past week, and we'll get to Graham Ashcraft. He's starting to look up. Love that. There was an unfortunate update for Blake Dunn, but I want to start first with Noelvi Marte because we're all sort of hanging our hat on this fact that Noelvi Marte is going to come back and then everything's going to be fine. The biggest issue with that is right now he's not hitting. And there's a question to be had of how much exactly they're putting into his statistical performance at AAA. There's a good chance that all they're doing is making sure that he is recovering well, and because he's just doing like this little spring training thing to get ready for the majors, and then they're just going to call him up right after game 80. That's a possibility. It's only 3 games away. After the Pirates series is over, as they head to St. Louis, Noelvi Marte is eligible to be called up. But he's not hitting. In 45 at-bats, he has 7 hits. A double, and that's the only extra base hit that he has. He has 13 strikeouts compared to no walks. And the other part of this, too, is that he's hit a lot of balls on the ground. 59%, it's like 58.6% of his batted balls are on the ground. Now, is the question for me and the question for you is he really going that hard right now? Or is this just something where he's trying to get into the motions, get into the groove, and then whenever he hits the majors, he's going to be hitting the ground running? Because it's not as if AAA success means that you're going to come up to the majors and go crazy. We've said this many times. But the 13 strikeouts to 0 walks and the 59% ground ball rate gives me a little bit of pause. Now, there's a very good chance that him coming back means the lineup moves in a way that is very good for multiple people. You can DH Candelario a little bit more. You can DH Jonathan India a little bit more. You can move Spencer Steer to second base or left field and get some bad gloves out of the lineup. You can move Spencer Steer to first base or left field. You could possibly give Will Benson some more off days. My man Will Benson is struggling. I love Will Benson, and I am one of the card-carrying members of the Will Benson fan club, but he is struggling right now. And dude really needs some help. I don't know what that is, but needs something. Just a really good cup of coffee. Maybe that's it. But the hard part about Noelvi Marte is what kind of stock do you put into his performance right now in Louisville? Because if the Reds are actually monitoring this and saying, we don't love the fact that he's not walked and that he's hitting everything on the ground, then are they just going to pull him up? Game 81. Now, I will say they did make a move that makes me think that's the case. They did call up Livan Soto, an infielder from Louisville, Livan Soto. He replaced Austin Wynns, and Tyler Stevenson played on Sunday. So maybe the whole thing with Tyler Stevenson is fine, and they don't need to worry about it anymore, because when you get rid of the third catcher, that tells me they're not worried about Stevenson anymore. He did catch, and he started, and he played the whole game on Sunday. Didn't look like there was an issue. In fact, he just missed hitting a home run, and he had a nice double. So he looked all right. But they called up Livan Soto, and that seems like a guy that they will have no problem sending down on Game 81 whenever Noelvi Marte is ready. We'll have to see. But, yeah, as of right now, don't love the results that we're seeing from Noelvi Marte in his rehab. You know whose results I do love? Graham Ashcraft. He pitched phenomenally well in his last start for Louisville, through 6 innings, 8 strikeouts, 1 run allowed, 1 walk. And in fact, in both starts now, he has thrown 6 innings with just 1 walk. That is really good to see. I don't necessarily know what the timeline is there, if they're looking for him to make 1 or 2 more starts, or what the deal is. They've already got their probable starters set for the Pittsburgh series. Carson Spires is pitching again tonight. So that would lead me to believe that probably we'll see at least 1 more turn through the rotation before Graham Ashcraft comes back, and there's likely that it might be 2 more turns through the rotation. Just my guess on that. I don't have any information that is telling me this, but the good news is he has pitched well. And I'm not worried about hits allowed. I'm not worried that much about runs allowed or anything like that. Homers, what can Graham Ashcraft control? Is he allowing home runs? Is he allowing walks? And is he getting swings and misses and strikeouts? So far, it looks like he's doing pretty well in all 3 categories. We'll continue to keep up with that. And then Blake Dunn had a little bit of a hitting streak going, and then he got hit in the head with a fastball again. But this time, he didn't pop right back up like the Terminator. Unfortunately, he got, I think it was a laceration on his head from the hit by pitch, and he's been put on the injured list while that heals. So hoping everything is all good with him. That was unfortunate to see, because he has been on a bit of a tear for Louisville. And a quick note as well, looking down in Chattanooga, Austin Hendrick hit a home run yesterday, maybe working his way back into some sort of conversation. That's a dude who was a former first-round pick that's kind of fallen off the radar completely. Like, I don't think anybody's really considering Austin Hendrick as part of the future. Could he play his way into an interesting trade piece? That's another question. Be interested to see how that goes. But yeah, the question for me, when we wrap up this Miners Monday segment, the question for me is, how do the Reds evaluate the rehab outing for Noelvi Marte? Is it all about just getting into a groove to where, he plays, he recovers, he plays again, he recovers, he plays again, he recovers? Because having sit for as long as he did, and I know he wasn't just sitting. It's not like me watching a game, just sitting on the couch, just, munching on my favorite snacks and drinking a cold beverage. He's been working out and trying to keep in shape, but he's not been in game action. So is the plan just to get him in game action, see how his body reacts and all this other stuff, or is there something more to it? And are they worried about the .56 batting average that he has in 45 at bats? We will find out in like 3 days. He's back soon, and I'm very excited about that. There's just a few numbers in AAA that have given me a little bit of pause with that, but that's where we will wrap up today's Locked On Reds podcast. Hopefully tomorrow will be a little bit more, a little bit more free-spirited, a little bit lighthearted. Just was frustrated so much by this weekend. The shoulda, woulda, coulda Cincinnati Reds of 2024. Really hope that's not what we're calling them because right now it seems like they're trending that way. But you can expect that whether they shoulda, they woulda, they coulda, or they did, we're going to be here every single day giving you Reds content, talking about this Cincinnati Reds team. Hey, look, you know what? Let's end it on a positive note. Elly was on fire this weekend. Homered, had a bunch of hits, scored a bunch of runs. Let's go. That's how we end it. And we'll be ready for tomorrow to have a lighthearted and fun podcast where we talk about your Cincinnati Reds, because we are locked on Reds every single day.